Recently on the channel, I asked you guys what is the best JRPG series on the Nintendo Switch right now. Now, because of limitations with the community section on YouTube, I was only able to put 4 sections in, and I wanted to have the emphasis on the biggest RPG players right now on the Nintendo Switch. Now, don't worry guys, we will have other videos talking about some of the other series that you guys mentioned to me in the comment section below, like the Legend of Heroes series, for example. But for right now, we're taking a look at these 4 series, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles, Final Fantasy, Persona, and Dragon Quest. Now, this question is loaded because while the Nintendo Switch does have all of these franchises in some way, shape, or form on it right now, all of the best games or the newest games aren't necessarily on the Nintendo Switch. So, for example, Persona, while it's getting Persona 3 and Persona 4 and Persona 5, those aren't out right now at this point. And also with Final Fantasy, it's not like Final Fantasy 7 Remake and Final Fantasy 15, at least the regular edition of Final Fantasy 15, is on the Nintendo Switch right now. So there are some limits when it comes down to it. Now, Dragon Quest has been represented on the Nintendo Switch fairly well, and we also have a brand new Dragon Quest game coming out on the Nintendo Switch in December. Now, Xenoblade obviously has plenty of representation, with the only major game not on the Nintendo Switch is Xenoblade Chronicles X. So it's interesting to see that dynamic because each one of these franchises is missing a key player here or there. So I definitely wanted to get you guys' opinion right now at this point, and then we'll do this poll again later after some of the bigger games have came out, like Dragon Quest Treasures, like Persona 5, like Persona 3 and 4, like Crisis Core, Final Fantasy 7 Reunion. So there's still room for this to grow. So the results are as follows. Now I'm going to talk about this just a bit because I think each one of these franchises is absolutely incredible in their own way. Then I can also talk about a few things where I think that they can improve too. So starting off at the bottom with the least amount of results out of these 4 is Dragon Quest. Now the most recent game is Dragon Quest XI S, Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition, which is actually the highest rated Nintendo Switch traditional JRPG on the system right now. And I think it has like a 91 or so average in terms of the major games out of all of these franchises, because the only Persona game on the Nintendo Switch right now is Persona 5 Strikers, and of course Persona 5 Royal. That's obviously rated higher than Dragon Quest, but right now on the Nintendo Switch. But Dragon Quest is an incredible franchise. I think that with 10% of the vote here, that's still not bad. And I think that Dragon Quest definitely still has room to grow on the Nintendo Switch. We don't have the previous Dragon Quest games. I think that maybe it would get more clout, I would say, if we got Dragon Quest like 7 and 8 and maybe 9 on the Nintendo Switch in some type of way. I mean, right now we don't even have the localization for Dragon Quest X officially. I mean, you can find it and play it, so I mean there's that, but we don't have the official localization. But Dragon Quest XI S was still a huge game that people really enjoyed. I think for me personally, especially with this upcoming Dragon Quest, with Dragon Quest 12, I think that they need to add a little bit more sauce into the gameplay. Now the gameplay is very vanilla. It's very by the book, which is great. I mean, it's great for those people that like it. There are some little wrinkles here and there that make it fun and that make it adventurous. The stories are usually pretty good as well. The art is incredible with the Kira Toriyama and everything. But I just feel that Dragon Quest would really be better off going forward in the future if they add a little bit of spice into the gameplay and also into the soundtrack as well, which I know will be controversial because some people love the Dragon Quest music, but I think that it's just a little bit too flat for my taste. I'd like a little bit more guitar riffs and a little bit more sauce and kind of spice into the music. So we'll see what happens with Dragon Quest 12, because it does seem like they are going to take a little bit more of a drastic turn compared to Dragon Quest 11 based on the interviews and what they've said, and based on even that debut trailer, or more like teaser, for the game. Now, next up at 3rd place is Final Fantasy. Now, Final Fantasy has a ton of games on the Nintendo Switch. We've got Final Fantasy 7, we've got Final Fantasy 8, we've got Final Fantasy 9, 10, 10-2, Final Fantasy 12. We've got spin-offs like Chocobo Racing. We've also got World of Final Fantasy, that game. We've got the Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition, which people hate because of the art style. but it's pretty much the game there when it comes to Final Fantasy 15. I mean, there's all sorts of Final Fantasy on the Nintendo Switch, and I think that Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion is going to be another great entry into the franchise. Now, interestingly here, it was 5 percentage points higher than Dragon Quest, so that shows a little bit of a gap there, and it can only get wider with the new Crisis Core game coming out, because I'm telling you guys, I played that game back in the day on the PlayStation Portable, and while it's fantastic on there, it's really good, there were some limitations, and the game has never been remastered, never been remade, never been anything until now, and boy, did they pick the time to actually get that done, because this game looks incredible. So I feel that Final Fantasy could make a big jump in a lot of people's eyes and new players with the Crisis Core game, because it is incredible what they've done. They've taken kind of the stuff from Final Fantasy VII Remake and put it into Crisis Core, which is a very unique RPG that really pushed the limits of the PlayStation Portable, and they've completely remastered the graphics. Heck, they remastered the graphics so well that Square Enix internally didn't know whether to call it a remake, but just settled on a remaster because the game's story didn't change up, and it might not necessarily fall in line with them calling Final Fantasy VII Remake a remake because they changed up the story and many other elements despite the game being completely remade. So I think that it's very possible for Final Fantasy to get a big jump when it comes to what Nintendo Switch players in this community are thinking. So I love Final Fantasy. I think it's fantastic, and I cannot wait to play Crisis Core this December on Nintendo Switch and of course on PlayStation 5 as well. I will be picking up both copies. Now, next up at number 3, and with a pretty sizable jump over Dragon Quest and also Final Fantasy, is Persona at 26%. That is a 16% jump over Dragon Quest and another 11% jump over Final Fantasy, and with good reason here. I think that Persona, out of all of these here that we're talking about, Persona is the highest rated. It's gotten the highest rating when it comes to reviews out there. It's done incredibly well on the PlayStation brands, and people have been port begging and have been crying for Persona to come over to other platforms, specifically the Nintendo Switch, now for a half decade plus or so now at this point. So we're finally getting it, and I think that fans are really going to show their love for Persona on the Nintendo Switch. It comes out this October. We're not too far away from the release of the game, and I would expect there to be some pretty impressive sales for the short term and also the long term. Persona has everything that I think that the old school and modern Nintendo Switch players are looking for. It's got a great turn-based battle system that's great for portable play. It's got a ton of content in the game. It's got incredible music. The music in this game is just absolutely sublime. There are so many tracks, and it's so catchy, and it really just fits. Whenever there's lyrics, it just works. Whenever they have their beats and instrumentals, this stuff is incredible. So there's a reason why they do these P-Live concerts and people go out there and they sell out tickets and everything, because the music is that great. And when it comes to the style and the graphics and the gameplay, Persona just really sets the bar really high for turn-based RPGs, pretty much at the top of the hill right now at this point, with not many other games that can reach the popularity and the style and substance that Persona has. So I think that a lot of you Switch players that maybe didn't get a chance to play the game before on PlayStation are going to get the opportunity to play it for the first time, and maybe you'll actually vote for Persona later down the line over some of these other franchises. Now, last but definitely not least, and something that I felt would be a theme on this channel, or at least get voted the highest, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles, with a sizable jump over everything else. With 49% of the votes, we had nearly 15,000 votes on the channel here, so thousands of people felt that Xenoblade is the best RPG series right now at this point. Now, this doesn't count all the history and legacy of all the games dating all the way back, because obviously Xenoblade is the newest out of all of these games, with Persona being the next after that, because Xenoblade started in 2010. Persona obviously was well before that. Final Fantasy was before that. Dragon Quest was before that, 80s and everything. So Xenoblade is the newest, but I think that the reason why Xenoblade obviously gets such high marks here with the 49% is because it's very unique. The battle system in this game is unlike anything else that you'll ever play. Sometimes you get kind of a love it or hate it thing, but I think out of all of these RPGs, Xenoblade gives you the most of all these different areas, right? It's got incredible music, it's got unique battles, it's got crazy amounts of content, just ridiculous amounts of content, and it's got a lot of, I would say, industry changing type of things, especially with the JRPG realm. The fact that you can have a JRPG that lets you have 7 characters on screen, 6 that you can switch between at any point during the battles in a seamless open world is just something that's not offered currently a lot, even with PlayStation 5 and also Xbox Series and RPGs coming out on those systems. So I can see why Xenoblade is the highest on this list, despite it maybe not being the most polished out of all of them. Traditionally, with all the games, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is incredibly polished, but of course Xenoblade Chronicles 2 launched in a little bit of a rough state. Even the original Xenoblade launched in a little bit of a rough state on the Wii with certain things, but I think that the story, the lore, what it does, and just how the games kind of make you feel in a certain way, the cutscenes, the music, everything just kind of ties together to blend this perfect just thing that really you can't get from any other RPG on the market. And once again, there's nothing else that plays like it. A lot of these games you can find different stuff that kind of plays like it, right? Persona with SMT, obviously Final Fantasy has other games that kind of play like it with action RPGs. Dragon Quest is a traditional JRPG, but nothing else quite hits like Xenoblade. So I can see why it is up there, but to be honest, this was more to get a pulse on what people are thinking out of these, and also to highlight the incredible turnaround, in my opinion, that we've seen from a console level JRPG perspective on the Nintendo Switch over what we got with the Wii U. Yes, the Nintendo 3DS definitely got plenty of great RPGs, but it's really refreshing to see Nintendo and also Japanese developers say, okay, hold up here, we're going to support Nintendo again with big Japanese RPGs, because that's what we've been missing for the past couple generations on Nintendo home consoles. The Wii U was atrocious when it comes down to it. The Wii was not atrocious, but it wasn't very good when it comes to major JRPGs. Actually, it was pretty bad. We didn't see a lot of them. Now, some developers did make some RPGs here and there, but it was pretty bad. And even dating back to the GameCube, which was okay, better than the N64, but still not up to where I felt that it should be, getting Final Fantasy and getting a lot of these different style of games, getting Dragon Quest and all that. We just didn't see that on Nintendo systems for the past few generations. Honestly, really the last time that I can feel that a Nintendo home console really got the brunt of support when it comes to Japanese RPGs was the Super Nintendo. That was the last time that I can feel it was like, okay, we're all in with this, we're gonna make a lot of high quality games. And the Super Nintendo was very successful, had a lot of people really dedicated into the platform. And if you skip all the way now, 30 years later or whatever the case is, you look at the Nintendo Switch and the same thing is happening. So I think that the Japanese RPGs and the games that give you plenty of depth and kind of core meats and potatoes, those are what's going to make Nintendo successful. Those are going to help facilitate what Nintendo's doing with the hybrid platform, because these games fit so well on the system and do incredibly well too. In addition to bridging the gap between Nintendo's big hitters like Splatoon or like Zelda and Mario, getting Xenoblade in July/August was fantastic and helped us really pass the time all the way to when Splatoon came out, which is the big, 10 million plus sellers. So I think that these games are very important. I think that it's cool that Nintendo and the partners are kind of highlighting these type of games and getting them out on the system. And I feel that this is going to catapult or even really just slingshot Nintendo with the Nintendo Switch 2 to maybe get major Final Fantasies and to get a major Persona game and to get a major Dragon Quest game and not have to wait a number of years or have issues here or there, or only get some of the side stuff or the older games, but actually get new games built for it with that confidence. Because right now and at this point, guys, they're building Nintendo Switch 2 games. They're building new RPGs. The next Monolith Soft game is in development. The next big Final Fantasy games and all that, they're in development. They're looking at platforms to port it to. Persona as well, Dragon Quest, and the confidence and sales that these games are getting on the Switch platform are going to absolutely affect what happens in the future. So it's cool to highlight it. It's cool to talk about it and discuss among ourselves kind of what's going on and what's good on the system with these major RPGs. So what do you guys think when it comes to what the best JRPG series is right now on the Nintendo Switch? let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. We will see you for the next video. Peace.